And at that time, it wasn't really comprehended, right? Because the things were still in high demand. Interest rates were really low. You had 6, 7, 10 deals in escrow like AZ. It's always going to be this way. All right. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, AZ Araujo, and I see all these wonderful people logging on. Go ahead and check in. Lorinda, Sylvia, Daniel, Edgar, Claudia, go ahead and check in as you're in here. Looking forward. Amir, what's going on, my brother? I'm looking forward to this call. And a lot of things, you know, as I go through the weeks, I'm thinking about what I can discuss, right? So I'm looking for any type of revelation throughout the week, any type of lesson that I can find, anything that makes me a better person, right? Something that I could share that hopefully resonates with you so that you're able to take that little bit of insight and do something with it. And one of the things that I get caught up on oftentimes is the end result, right? Even rushing from my house to the office is like a 35-minute drive. And sometimes I'm just so caught up, I'm trying to be on time that I forget what's in the in-between, right? What's in between from me leaving my house to actually getting here. And I realized that, you know, it's when I focus on the in-between is when real growth actually happens. The result is not the real growth of what you're going to become. It's the in-between. Even right now, I was just having a conversation with Jesse, and I was telling him about this event that I was asked to speak on. You know, thousands of people on this call and people live on stage. It was an amazing experience on this like $20 million stage. And, you know, when I committed, you know, it was the commitment to the end result. I was caught up in the in-between, preparing for this meeting, not seeing the benefit of how I'm going to come out after I complete it, right? I was caught up in the in-between, like, why did I commit to this? I have so much on my plate. What if I stumble? What if I don't make sense? What if it's not as passionate as I wanted to convey it? What if people don't get a lesson of what I'm trying to say? So I was caught up in the in-between as opposed to what is it going to do for me once I get there, right? Actually being in the moment of seeing how it's developing me, how I have to focus on becoming greater. Appreciating the fact that out of thousands of people that have been through this program, I was selected as one. It was the in-between that I chose not to be in. And the in-between is oftentimes where we become the best person, the best version of yourself. Not when you get the result and not when you make the decision. It's the pathway of getting from point A to point B, not getting to point B. And I felt so good and I felt so accomplished after I was done. But during that time, I didn't appreciate all that. It was on my mind. I was stressing out. I was losing sleep. Same thing happened, right? When I committed to like these Ironman 70.3 or any commitment of going out and speaking somewhere. It's like the in-between, I always loathed it. I just didn't love it because I was caught up of the work it was going to entail to get the end result. But that's being obedient, right? Being obedient to the end result. And I see this right now. I remember back in 2007, I got my license back in 2004, okay? So I'm exposing myself here. I got my license back in 2004, and in 2007, after 3 years of massive success, right, as I rode the wave of a good market, you know, this is not the first time I've seen the market go up and I've seen the market go down and I've seen everything in between. But I rode this wave, I got into it in a good time, and I was just diligent about my efforts. I just went out and started speaking to people and just letting people know who I am and what I'm about. I wasn't afraid, right? I just went at it because my goal was to leave my full-time job, my full-time position. So I had to do the right things to get to that point. But I remember it was like I worked so well and I became so successful so quickly. Imagine being really successful in your mid-20s. Right? Mid-20s, before you're even 30. And I started making more money than I ever imagined. I'm like, wow, this is good. This is going to last forever. I made it. Right? I got a taste of it. And in 2007, I get nominated for a top 30 under 30 in the country on Realtor Magazine. I'm like, whoa, okay. Next thing you know, I'm only 5 of the 30 that end up on the cover of Realtor Magazine. like I'm on top of the world. Life is always going to be good moving forward because that's the way I saw success. Once you hit success, it's always going to be that way. Well, you know the story of what happened next. 2008, everything fell apart. The end of 2007 actually is when things started falling apart. At least it did for me. I remember having, 15 plus deals in escrow. Okay, things were going good. I was doing massive marketing. I didn't hold back. I was doing television commercials. I was doing newspapers. Yes, newspapers. Magazines. Okay, I was doing radio. I had my own little show. I mean, I was going all after it. And all of a sudden, like I get phone calls from my mortgage brokers. Hey, this bank shut down, but don't worry. It's going to go to this other bank. We're going to close this deal. An hour later, hey, AZ, you know that bank that I told you that was going to shut down, that was going to save this deal? Well, it turns out they're going out of business, but don't worry. We got many options. Later on that day, I had deal after deal after deal just fall out. No one was lending. The market was crashing. It was insane. Like things just went out of control. I mean, it went by so quickly. I didn't even know how to respond. I was just in shock. I froze. I was like, what the heck is going on here? Even though I hit success, I was dependent on that success to take me on into the future. So I wasn't thinking about the future in regards to saving or being more critical about my decisions on spending. I remember I had just bought a brand new, back then there was a brand new Hummer SUV truck. You remember those Hummer trucks? Yeah, I'm going way back, okay, guys? So I was on the list. I was one of the first ones to get it, and I lift it up, and I put big 24-inch wheels on it, and I have it like this big design on it. AZ and Associates, right? The hottest name in real estate. I mean, this thing, it was an awesome design. So I got used to a certain lifestyle, and then the market shifted. And I froze. And I realized I was being exposed. I created a lifestyle based on thinking that things were always going to be this way. And I froze, and I fell into this pit of like embarrassment and frustration. I fell into this pit of being afraid and unstable. How could I be on the cover of Realtor magazine just a few months before and now trying to figure out how I'm going to pay the mortgage? That's how much I was depending on paycheck to paycheck. Even though I was making a lot of money, I started spending more and didn't think about the future because I didn't think about, hey, what happens if things automatically stop? What happens if things are not in this high demand? Now I wasn't thinking about the market crash, even though there was whispers of it. Even all the warnings were out there for us, just like they were all out there for us last year. Prices can't continue to go this high, this fast. The demand can't always continue to go up. People can't just bid $50,000 to $100,000 above what it's worth. I mean, we saw all the clues. But yet there was a part of us, at least in, what I've witnessed, that is always going to be this way. Now, I didn't have the right coaches and mentors to let me know that that was just a season in time, but you got to prepare for the seasons. You got to prepare for winter. And when you don't, it's cold out there. It is dark. It is gloomy. It's terrifying. You can't even think because your knees are shaking so much of where your next paycheck's coming from. And I remember just being stuck in that place. And I would pray. I was like, God, please help me through this. And back then, I didn't pray when things were good. Now I was looking for a savior. All I need is just one deal to close. Lord, like 14 of them just fell. I just need this one. There I am begging, but never thanking when things were good. I have faith, Lord, and I would pray I have all this faith. And this is where the confusion sometimes happens, right? Between faith and obedience. You can have faith all day long, but if you're not obedient to the work, if you're not obedient to the responsibility that is required to live at a certain standard, then it doesn't matter how much faith you have. It's like trying to win the lottery. And I see some posts, hey guys, the lottery is up to 1.5 billion. Let's all pull our money together. And now they're all hoping and praying like I was, Lord, please. But I wasn't obedient to the work. I thought things were always going to be this way. I wasn't helping other people out. It was all self-centered. When I made all that money, it wasn't because I was helping others. I wasn't helping others how to build their wealth. It was all self-centered. It was so that I can have multiple cars. So that I go out and party whenever I wanted to. So I can go out and spend and buy all those expensive name brand clothing and accessories. But I was never obedient to what we have to do. Obedient to the fact that when you grow, it's got to help many others beyond this, so that you realize the responsibility that lies on your shoulders. See, I didn't see past just the nice things. So it was real easy for me to just understand that it was always going to be this way. But now I see the big picture. I got to be able to see 5, 10 steps ahead because there's so much relying on me. Even this mindset mastery. Most won't need it, but if there's just one person that changes their mindset, and as opposed to being in a place of being afraid today, they gain that certainty back, then I did my job. But it's being obedient to the work, not just simply having faith. Trust me, I had a lot of faith, but I just wasn't in alignment. And this is a wake up. This is the in-between right now. We're going in between seasons. And right now, it's like everyone wants to plant the seeds and get the end result. They're like, hey, you got to water the seed every day. We've heard that analogy. We got to water every day. You know, the grass is not always greener. I mean, we come up with all these analogies about the right things to say, but yet we're not obedient to actually do it. Understand that right now we're all being exposed. Some more than others. Now I learned my lessons. Trust me. And these are things that I was trying to preach on a consistent basis a year ago. I even look back at our old Ignite event from January 2022. And I try to forewarn, hey guys, it can't always be this way. Let's prepare. Because we got to be prepared for the winter. And I was encouraging you to do the right things. It's not just to make money for the now, for the nice things, for the toys. And I said, although I encourage you to push yourself there, make sure you're doing the right things for long term. And at that time, it wasn't really comprehended, right? Because the things were still in high demand. Interest rates were really low. You had 6, 7, 10 deals in escrow like AZ. It's always going to be this way. But I understand there's always seasons, and some last longer than others. And listen, are you ready for the winter to last 6 months? Because when you look at the stats, this time last year, there was about 7,100 homes sold in Maricopa County. This year, about 4,000. What about if it gets down to 2,000? Where is that going to put you? And I get it. It's natural to feel afraid. It's natural to feel irritated, frustrated with yourself. Because you decided to take the 10 vacations during the last year versus putting it right back into your business with an infrastructure that will serve you long term. Now I get it. There wasn't an urgency, right? Necessarily. To be obedient to the work because, well, they just fell out of the sky. Buyers were falling out of the sky. So I get it. I got caught up. And I've been there. And it hits the ego. It hurts. It's like frustrating. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. Like, how could I make so much money and now start like thinking about, do I need a haircut? I don't really need a haircut. I like long hair. That was my thought process. I went through a period. If you go back to my photos, I went through a period of long hair. It's not because I was trying to be stylish. And then when it got too long, I went through a period of a shaved head because I decided to buy a $19.99 shaver from Costco and maintain my own hair. It was a rough time. And some of you are going through rough times right now. I know it because I've seen some of you just completely fall off of your daily routines. And it's noticeable in your marketing. It's noticeable with your body. It's noticeable in your eyes. The stress, the worry. I get it. I've been there. But this exposure, right? You're being exposed is a good thing for you. Not at the moment. It sucks. Listen, I didn't like to wear I've admitted this. I've worn makeup before. Trying to hide the black bags under my eyes of the stress, of the worry, where it seemed like it was an onslaught, where I really thought my life was over. It's crazy. When you're in that place, you really think the worst. I had lawsuits coming in, the IRS letters, no money. Like, I had to cover the black in my eyes. So Carla would help me do that. Because I hope this buyer really wants to buy because we really need the money. But I was caught up in the in between. And I said I was faithful, but I wasn't. Because to be faithful, you have to be obedient. They're not the same thing. And you can say it all day long, you can pray all day long. It's the obedience to the work. And right now we have to be more obedient than ever. Because we're going through a transitional phase right now. We don't know where the market's going to go. I'm hearing rumors that the interest rate might go up to 10%. Guess what that's going to do to the overall demand? Is it possible that we only sell 2,500 homes here in Maricopa County? Where's that going to put you? Because there's 49,000 other agents out there. And it's scary, right? When we just sit there, frozen, it's scary. But understand that if you feel you're helpless, you're going to be helpless. If you feel like your world's going to implode, then it will implode. Because when you have a conviction within that you're going to be obedient to the game regardless of the end result, you'll come out. See, what I didn't realize in 2008, I was just caught up in the in-between stage, right? I was caught up in between my realtor magazine and and what I wanted, right? I wanted reprieve. I wanted not to feel the pressure. I wanted to be able to pay my bills. But there's a path to that. It just doesn't come because the market's going to shift for you. It comes because you decided that that's where you wanted to be. And with that decision comes extreme action. Understanding that you just can't simply go day to day and only do the work if you feel like it. It's got to be a conviction within and really a discipline that regardless of the outcomes, you're in between. You need this. You see, what I didn't realize is that the lessons that I learned during that time were going to serve me today. You see, I didn't have an infrastructure. I didn't have systems. I didn't have processes. I was a one-man show. A one-man show. So anytime I would leave out of town, it would cost me thousands not because of the fancy vacation I went on. It was because of what I left on the table. I refused to grow. And there was many moments before that gave me those indicators that I needed to set a foundation, but I never did. Because again, it was always self-centered. But during that time, I built an infrastructure. I built a team, a process. During that time when everyone was fleeing from the industry, I decided to buckle down, to dig my heels into the sand. And not only did I survive, but I thrived, building one of the largest REO operations in the state of Arizona. But it was the in-between. I was caught up. I was afraid. But I just needed to become obedient to the work. And obedient during that time was to do a lot of things free before you got any type of return. There's this thing called BPOs. And Fred, I see you on the call. You know what BPOs are, right? I remember my first BPO. It took me about 4 or 5 hours just to finish this damn thing. One BPO. And I had like 5 other orders. I remember being so frustrated, not knowing where to get the information from. How am I supposed to get all these trends? You see, when things were easy, I never developed those skill sets. I didn't know how to do a proper CMA. I didn't know how to get trends in a particular zip code. I didn't know how much values were decreasing month to month. So it took me for a long time. But I committed that there's got to be a way. And there's always going to be a way. Like I said, we live in a city that there's millions of people, millions moving in. There's always going to be a market. You just have to decide, are you going to be part of it or not? But if you hesitate right now, that decision will be made for you. And I know right now you may be putting more than what you get out. And it's going to be like that for a few more months. But listen, if you put nothing at all into it, you're going to be in a rough place come February. Be obedient to the work. So in 2008, I just started trying to figure it out, doing these BPOs. And I did like 10, 11, 15 of them before I even got my first assignment. And then when I got my first assignment, I had to figure all that out. So it was a lot of sleepless nights. And then they wanted me to pay for like all these repairs of the money that I didn't have. So there I go maxing out my credit cards. Only to realize they don't pay you back till 90 days later. So I'm like in between. But I had to be obedient to the work. And that's what I'm urging you right now. You have a certain lifestyle that you created for yourself. It doesn't mean you have to give it up. But you can create a very unstable household if you're at home frustrated, afraid. You can beat yourself all day long, but what is that going to do? You can question all your decisions up to this point, but what is that going to do for you right now? Be obedient to the work. And there's a side of you right now. You're like, even you in your decisions, because I know I was. And maybe it doesn't have anything to do with you, but I'm going to say you as a general term, okay? But there's a side of you that's pulling you one way. that's saying you can do this. You know what to do. You're wise. You're experienced. You may be feeling a new sense of motivation right now as we're going through this. And it's pulling you one way. And then all of a sudden, the dysfunctional you, right? The demons, as Carla would describe it, within you. The old version of you. The scarcity version of you. The afraid version of you starts telling you this other thing. What if it doesn't change? What if you do all this work and nothing changes? What if you can't pay your bills? You just got a brand new car. So you're getting tugged one way of, yes, you can do it. I'm certain. I'm powerful. I'm wise. And you're trying to tell yourself all these things. And then the other version is, you have nothing. You have no escrows. Your buyers are not moving forward. What happens? What happens if none of this closes? What's going to happen to your mortgage? What's going to happen to your car payments? Your savings is dwindling down. So you're being rocked back and forth like Stretch Armstrong, right? Arms are being pulled on opposite sides, and you're just staying there frozen. And that's where I was for about 3 months in 2008. Frozen, afraid, watching the news every single day. Thinking it was okay just because it's happening to everyone else. That it was okay that I'm going through it too. That I can't pay my mortgage because all these other people are not doing it. As opposed to looking for a solution. I walked right into a victim mindset. And I stayed there because the majority of the population was in that space. Just like the majority of agents are in that space. Oh, it's getting tough out there. It's so rough out there. But yet there's other agents completely killing it right now. I'm seeing these brand new agents walking through the doors. They have no idea. And they're getting escrow after escrow. While the veteran agents are buying into some of this hysteria that's going on out there. Walking right into that, just like I did. In 2008, I walked into it in 3 months and I was like, it's okay for me not to pay my mortgage. It's okay for me not to pay my car payments. It's okay for me to struggle financially because everyone is doing it as well. Everyone is experiencing this as well. You got to realize you're not like everyone. I wasn't like everyone. I didn't feel right being in that place like a victim, helpless. So I went seeking. I went around asking. And I went around knocking. And I figured some things out. And I knew having faith is a given. I have faith. But now I needed to be obedient to it. So every day I went about it. Day in and day out. Day in and day out. More problems coming my way. Another lawsuit. Day in and day out. Hey, the tuition's due at the school. Babe, what are we going to do? Day in and day out. Obedient to the work. And I turned the tides. Things started changing financially for me. But it didn't come without struggle. It didn't come out without fear and frustration. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to tell people I couldn't pay my mortgage. So I didn't tell anyone. My Hummer, I was just so happy that the lease had just ended right there. Because I couldn't have taken one more payment. But I became obedient to the work. And this is where you need to go right now. Understand that being exposed is going back to the things you didn't do during the frenzy. And this is as simple as just writing the things down that you need for your business. Look at this as a blessing. That now you have time to do all the things you wish you had time before. Now you can put your CRM together. You can put your infrastructure of your business together, your marketing together. But you got to stay diligent with that. Because this in-between could last a few months. But if you're frozen, you're going to be like all the many of thousands of agents that had the same story even years after that. As I was killing it in this market, they had the same story. And then they got with other people telling themselves the same story. And they settled into that. But you're not like everyone else. And it's a decision you have to make. You can buy into that, be afraid, stay at home, cause more worry. There's nothing worse than an unstable home. And you doing nothing about it is creating just that. And there's always going to be these in-between stages. And we talked about this before. You're going to be at the bull's horn or the bull's tail, right? And is this market going to shift? Absolutely. But we want to be on the bull's horn, okay? When it does, you'll be able to realize the greatest benefit of it. Even what happened during the frenzy. There was people that shut down because of COVID. There was people that were too afraid, all listening and talking to the same people. They didn't realize that there was another segment of realtors that was absolutely dominating the game. And then when they finally decided to get into it, they didn't even know how to get a contract accepted. And then they were praying and wishing that it was easier to get a contract accepted. And then they finally caught on, but it was already going back down. I prepared too much for too long to pause and freeze. And that's all I'm trying to instill in you. You've come too far to freeze now. You've come too far to stop now. And you're not like everyone else. And I tell myself that often. I've taken my vitamins for too long. I exercise my body every day. I eat the right foods. I'm not going to be afraid. And that's what I was beating day in and day out, right? Like a big drum. I'm not afraid. I've conditioned myself for too long. And I welcomed you to come along with. And as everybody's freezing, we ended up taking a lot of market share as a brokerage. I'm not the same person that was afraid back in 2007, 8. That's a lot of years in between. And I know the seasons will change. Are you going to participate in that change? Or are you just going to sit there wishing it was different? Wishing you would have never made those bad decisions? Wishing you would have saved? Or are you going to be obedient to the work? So as opposed to just trying to find the end result, what can you do during this in-between stage right now? Think about capacity. Think about marketing. Think about systems. Think about communication. Because that's all you got. Don't think about, what else can I do? Start questioning yourself that, I really don't like this being a realtor thing. Requires work. Listen, you love it. That's why you're in it. Stop telling yourself that. Let's get on our game. Let's be obedient to the work. Okay, this is not just for you to stay motivated. It's the in-between, between now and the next Mindset Master, between now and the next sales meeting. What are you going to do? That's on you right there. I can only come here for 30 minutes every Monday. our sales meetings every other week. But that's not going to help your position. What are you going to do in between? And I hope this inspires you. I just don't want this to motivate you. I hope this reminds you that you're not helpless. You're not like everyone else. Let them worry. If you freeze right now, there's going to be bigger consequences coming down the road. You haven't faced anything yet. I promise you. I thought things were bad when all my deals fell through. They only got worse when I was feeling sorry for myself. There's a great opportunity for you because your competition is feeling that way. They're not in the right environments, under the right leadership. And they're like little minions talking to each other. Oh, yeah, it's bad for you? Okay, it's bad for me too. Okay, is it bad for you? Oh, yeah, it's so bad for me too. Let's all huddle around and keep each other warm because it's so bad. Go into the cold. Go into the darkness. And get it done. Isaiah, faith without work is dead. I survived the 2008 crash. It was difficult for sure. I focus on getting one escrow. Don't stop marketing. Think of ways to market using minimum money. Flyer, post, videos, database. Fred, absolutely right. Right now it's about communicating. Communicate. Because if you come out of nowhere, come February, when the market does turn, come March, when it does turn, you'll be the last person they think about if you don't do the work right now. And that's it. And right now, you have a bigger advantage than we ever had. I was talking about newspapers just a second ago. You have your own media channel, your own social media channel. It's yours 24/7. Yet I only see one post. Yet I see individuals completely uprooted and upended because they don't have a deal in escrow to showcase, or just sold, or just listed. There's other things you can post. You know that, right? But there's a lot of people frazzled right now. I used to put up a just sold every week. Well, do something else. Maybe that's why you're being exposed, because you weren't showing enough. Adrian, the haircut thing. Yeah. That was a dark place to be in. And I remember the first time that I shaved my head. But it was my fault. It was my doing. It wasn't the economy. What's happening right now is not the economy. It's your decisions. Understand that there's people completely on the opposite end, on the opposite side of what I'm describing right now. They're having their best year ever. They're making more money now than they ever made in their life. It's just a small fraction, so you don't hear about them often. What are you going to do? It's your reaction to adversity, not the adversity itself, that determines your business and life story. That's it, man. Well said. Right there, Felipe. The demons are familiar. We know what our reality has been up until now. The version of us today that are conjuring those thoughts of what we know we can do requires us to be obedient. We either remain in the same pit or we obey what the work in front of us demands. And it's a huge ask. It's a huge ask to just keep watering, keep sowing, right? It's a huge ask because harvest season may not be for 6 months. And it may feel like you're starving, but you're building. It may feel like it's fruitless, but there's some gray attached to the other side. The in-between is where I build my capacity to build systems and infrastructure, to realize that it's always on me and only me. I learned that lesson many years ago. So I don't listen to what's going on around me. I'm looking for ways to resolve, to move, to pivot. Where are the opportunities? I'm in a good place to strike. Because I'm not like everyone else. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. Be obedient to the work. Stay on your game. Don't create that unstable household. Understand that you're not the same person that first got into this industry. Rely on those skill sets. Rely on that experience. And let's get after it. Thank you again, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.